Last year, on Valentine's Day, I'd planned this whole surprise for my wife, Sarah. I'd get home early, give her flowers, and we'd have dinner somewhere. But my tire blew out on Highway 47, with nothing but empty cornfields stretching out in every direction. I tried calling her, but my phone kept losing signal. I looked around and saw this weak yellow glow cutting through the darkness. I squinted to realize it was a tiny house standing alone in the middle of a cornfield, maybe a quarter mile off the road, and the yellow glow was actually its porch light. I didn't have much of a choice. It was past 9, freezing cold, and I hadn't seen another car in over an hour. I walked across the field toward the house. The corn was dead, with brittle stalks crunching under my feet. The closer I got, the more I could see that the house was old, with paint peeling and shutters hanging crooked. But there was music coming from inside, an old classic with too much saxophone. I knocked on the door, and a woman answered. She was wearing this beautiful red gown with her hair done up and makeup perfect, like she was going to some fancy party.
Oh.
She looked surprised to see me.
Can I help you?
I'm so sorry to bother you, ma'am. My car broke down on the highway and my phone's not getting service. Would it be possible to use your phone? She smiled.
Of course. Come in, it's freezing out there.
I stepped inside and immediately felt like I'd interrupted something important. The house was decorated for Valentine's Day, with candles everywhere, roses and vases, and the romantic music playing from an old record player. A man was sitting in an armchair in the living room. He was wearing a tuxedo, but it looked old and worn. He was staring at me with this expression I couldn't quite read, like he was annoyed that I'd interrupted his night. The woman gestured down a hallway, saying the phone was at the end. I kept thanking her while walking behind her. Martha showed me to a room with a landline and told me to take my time. She left. Shortly after, I could hear the couple arguing. "You always do this!" Harold was getting louder. "You always ruin our fun!"
I'm not ruining anything. You'll be gone in 5 minutes, Harold.
"This was supposed to be special! Just us!" I called Sarah and got her voicemail. I told her the car broke down on 47 and that I was okay, but really late. I hung up and turned to leave, but froze when I saw the warped shadow that had crept along the wall beside me. I looked over my shoulder to find the adjacent door standing half open, light spilling through the gap, casting a human outline across the plaster. I moved closer, heart pounding, and peeked inside. It was a bedroom, and a woman was sprawled on the bed, dressed in a red gown. It was the same one Martha had worn. She was face down, a knife buried between her shoulders. The blood had long since dried, rust brown and stiff against the sheets. My brain couldn't process it. "You shouldn't have looked." A voice whispered in my ear. Terrified, I turned to find Harold inches away. "You ruined it." His eyes looked dead. "I wanted tonight to be special." My heartbeat picked up. Without thinking, I bolted through the hallway, past Martha, who was still smiling in the living room, out the door and across the cornfield, while the dead stalks whipped my face. I got to my car, locked the doors, and sat there shaking. I tried calling 911, but had no service. Every other second, I kept glancing towards the house. Suddenly, a woman in red rose from the cornfield 20 feet away, standing and staring at me. I blinked, and she was gone. She appeared again. This time, she was closer than before, and she was smiling. I screamed, and she vanished. My eyes started watering as it kept happening. Every few seconds, she'd rise up, closer and closer, before disappearing. I sat in that car for 2 hours until the highway patrol drove past. The officers asked if I was okay and said I looked like I'd seen a ghost. I told him there was a house in the field and that a man had killed his wife, that I'd seen her body. He looked at me like I was crazy, but radioed it in. More cops came and I took them to the house. We walked across the field with flashlights. The house was there, but it was dark now. The officer tried the handle, and it was unlocked. Inside, everything was covered in dust. They found Martha in the bedroom with a knife in her back. Harold was in the bathroom with an empty pill bottle on the floor. An officer asked me when I was there. I don't know, 2 hours ago? They were alive and talked to me. He touched my shoulder. Sir, based on decomposition, these folks have been dead for at least 24 hours. I couldn't speak. The officer took my statement and helped me reach home. The autopsy confirmed that the couple had been dead for over a day before I knocked. Harold killed Martha on the day before Valentine's Day, then took pills. They'd planned a romantic evening and he snapped, and somehow they were still trying to have it. I think about it constantly, about how angry Harold looked when I interrupted, and Martha's smile. I still close my eyes and see her rising from that cornfield over and over, staring at me. My wife thinks I had some kind of breakdown from stress, that I imagined it all, but I know what I saw. Some people love each other so much they can't leave, even after death, and some people hate each other so much they're trapped together forever. I think Harold and Martha both. I'm from Nashville, and I was 13 when I ran away from home. I don't say that to be dramatic. I say it because that's exactly what happened. For years, home felt like a place I was just surviving, not living. My stepmom had a way of turning everything into my fault. My dad was a drunk and barely cared about me. So one night, I packed a bag with 2 shirts, my charger, and whatever cash I'd secretly saved. I told myself I'd be gone for a day, maybe 2. I was gone for 7. The streets didn't feel scary at first. I slept in parks, behind a closed library, and under a bus stop roof when it rained. I learned how to eat slowly, so food lasted longer. I learned how to pretend I wasn't cold. By the 7th night, I had $4 and some change. My stomach hurt so bad it felt like it was folding in on itself. I hadn't eaten since the morning before. I was sitting on the curb, watching the sky turn orange, when I heard the jingle of an ice cream truck. I almost laughed. It felt unreal, like a joke the universe was pulling on me. Ice cream? Really? But the sound got closer, rolling down the street like it always does in the summer, and my body moved before my brain could stop it. I waved. The truck slowed down, brakes squealing a little. The window slid open, and a man leaned out. He was middle-aged, with a scruffy beard and tired eyes, the kind of guy you wouldn't notice twice. "Kinda late for ice cream, kid," he said, half smiling. I shrugged.
Well, that's all I can afford for dinner, so...
He chuckled. "What'll it be?" I picked the cheapest thing, vanilla. When he handed it to me, my hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I took a bite and nearly cried. Cold, sweet, real food. We made small talk while I ate. He asked where my parents were. I said I didn't really have anywhere to go. I don't know why I said that. Maybe I was tired of lying. Maybe I wanted someone to notice. He went quiet. "A runaway, huh?" His tone made me feel uncomfortable. I nodded anyway. He looked at me for a long second, thinking something in his head. Then he smiled again. "That's rough. You look starved." My stomach betrayed me and growled loud enough for both of us to hear. He laughed. "Tell you what, my place is just down the block. My wife's cooking. Warm food, real food. You can crash for the night. No big deal." Every warning bell in my head went off at once, but hunger is louder than fear sometimes, louder than common sense.
Okay.
I said. I climbed into the truck. The door shut behind me with a heavy clunk. The inside smelled like sugar and metal. The jingle started again as he drove, but the streetlights began thinning out fast. We drove past houses and closed shops. For a few minutes, I really felt relieved that I won't be sleeping under the sky tonight. But then, I noticed the road. We weren't in town anymore. We were driving past the outskirts, and I could see construction signs. My heart started racing.
I thought you said it was close.
He didn't answer right away, just kept driving like he didn't care what I was saying. Moments later, he pulled into a dark, unfinished site and turned the engine off. He turned towards me and smiled. Not the tired smile from before. This one didn't reach his eyes.
I lied,
He said.
I don't have a wife. Honestly, it's been a while since I had company.
My whole body went cold. I reached for the door handle, but it wouldn't open. I yanked harder. Nothing.
Hey, open the door.
I said, my voice shaking. He leaned closer. I could smell his disgusting breath.
Relax, don't be like that. You still need someone to warm you up, right?
Panic exploded in my chest. I screamed. I kicked the door. My hands were slipping, my throat burning, and my brain screaming. You messed up. You messed up. You messed up. He tried to grab my face. I twisted away, crying, begging, words spilling out that didn't even sound like me. Just when he was about to take advantage of me, a beam of light cut through the window. A man dressed as a night watchman stood right outside my window, aiming his flashlight inside the truck. He yelled that this was a no parking zone and that the truck needs to be moved. The ice cream man froze. I saw fear and nervousness on his face. He swore under his breath, yanked the door open, and shoved me out. I fell on the ground hard. My shoulders scraped. My knees screamed with pain, but I didn't care. I was out. I was breathing air again. He was shocked and clueless, not realizing why a teenager was riding an ice cream truck at this late hour of the night. The truck sped off, tires spitting dirt, the jingle playing one last time like a sick joke. I crawled toward the guard, sobbed so hard I could barely talk. I told him everything. My words came out messy and broken, but he listened. He wrapped a jacket around me and called the cops. I reported the man by giving the cops description of his face as much as I could remember, but he was never caught. That night, I didn't go back to my dad's house. I specifically told the police to take it to a relative. My aunt took me under her wing after that incident. I have my own room, a lock on the door, and food in the fridge. I'm safer, but sometimes when I hear ice cream trucks pass by, I get triggered by the trauma of that night. Because hunger made me trust the wrong smile, and I don't think I'll ever forget that sound. I continue to recall that weekend as if it were a nightmare from which I never fully awoke. I was 16 and living with my parents in a quiet neighborhood on the north side of Fort Collins, Colorado, the kind of place where everyone lives a boring life. My parents were taking my aunt down to Denver because she was pregnant and started having complications. They asked if I'd be fine alone for 2 days. I said yes right away. I didn't want to admit it, but I was excited. I was excited not only because I had the house to myself, but also due to some personal reasons. I was dating a guy named Rory, and we were really in love. He was handsome and pampered me a lot. We had been talking about finally being alone together without parents around. After my dad left that night, I called him. We whispered on the phone like we were doing something illegal, even though we weren't. He said he could come over at around midnight, after his parents went to sleep. I told him the passcode to the front door so he wouldn't have to ring the bell. I asked him to come straight upstairs, because I'd probably already be in bed. After we hung up, I felt nervous, but in a good way. My hands were actually shaking a little while I cleaned the kitchen and double-checked the locks. I locked every door, I checked every window, I turned off all the downstairs lights. Then I went to my room and lay in bed. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my phone warm in my hand, replaying our conversation in my head and imagining how it would feel when he finally walked into my room. I kept smiling for no reason, then, suddenly, worrying for no reason too. My heart wouldn't slow down. The house felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. Every small sound stood out. The hum of the fridge downstairs, the tick of the hallway clock, and the wind brushing the window. I wore a really cute blue nightdress as a surprise for Rory, and I must have fallen asleep thinking so hard for an hour straight. At some point, I woke up. I didn't know why at first, but somehow I felt I wasn't alone in the house. With sleepy eyes, I scanned the room, and there was no one other than me. I went back to falling asleep when I heard a slow creak of my bedroom door opening. I remember smiling into my pillow and then turning to the other side to hide my excitement. I called out to Rory, telling him to come in. I also asked him what took him so long, but he didn't answer right away. He walked up to my bed and then slowly brushed his fingers all over my arm. It tickled and made me chuckle. I told him to lie down under the covers with me, but he just sat down on the bed. I felt the bed dip slightly with its weight. Up until now, he didn't say a single word, so I got a bit annoyed and told him to lie down and stop being weird. He still didn't say anything. That should have been my first real warning, but when you're half asleep, your brain fills in the blanks the way it wants to. I reached my hand back without looking, trying to find his arm so I could pull him closer. What I touched was not what I expected. The arm wasn't smooth or familiar. It was thick, extremely hairy, and quite muscular for a teenage boy. My hand froze. Every part of me went cold at the same time. I rolled onto my back, and I saw him. The person sitting on my bed, touching me a few moments back, was not my boyfriend. He was older, much older. His face was lined, his hair thinning, and his eyes were wide in a way that didn't look right. He was sitting inches from me, grinning like he had waited for this opportunity for so long. I screamed.
Ah! What the hell?
He flinched back and raised his hands.
Shh, shh. Don't scream. I just came to watch you sleep.
Oh my god! Mr. Paulson? Is that you?
Realizing that a man of my father's age and our neighbor, Mr. Paulson, who watched me grow up right in front of his eyes, would do something so vile and disgusting, I began screaming louder. He started panicking. It hit him that what he had done was enough to put him behind bars. He stood up, clearly trying to leave. That's when my bedroom door opened again. I saw Rory. He had his phone in his hand like he was about to text me, probably wondering why I wasn't answering. Mr. Paulson tried to rush past him. Rory stepped in front of him without thinking. The creep punched him in the face. I heard the crack, and Rory went down hard. He shoved past Rory and ran down the stairs and out the front door. I ran to Rory, shaking so bad I could barely hold my phone when I called 911. The police came, and Rory was taken to the hospital. My dad was informed too. Rory stayed in the hospital for 4 days with a broken nose and a concussion. I didn't sleep at all that night. My dad filed a report against our neighbor. A few days later, the police arrested him. He confessed to watching me for days. Mr. Paulson heard me on the phone with Rory while standing outside our kitchen window. That's how he learned the passcode and eventually got in, knowing I would be alone. I suffer from major trust issues now because I've known Mr. Paulson since I was a kid. He waved at me many times. I never thought a quiet person like him would do something like that. It still scares me to think how things could have gone way worse if I hadn't screamed for help that night. I still replay that drive in my head whenever I'm alone on the highway at night. I was 22 then, driving on State Route 32 late at night from a friend's house. The highway was nearly empty. My radio kept slipping in and out of static, voices dissolving into hiss. So I turned the volume down and drove in silence. Suddenly, I noticed headlights filling my rearview mirror. They came up fast, too fast for that stretch of road. I remember checking my speed, thinking I might be going too slow or that maybe I'd drifted. I eased into the next lane, giving the driver room to pass. That's just what you do, especially at night. But the car didn't pass. It slowed and settled beside me, matching my speed perfectly. I glanced over, irritated more than afraid at first, expecting to see someone on their phone or messing with me. Instead, my eyes locked onto the back seat. A little girl sat there alone. She couldn't have been more than 6 or 7. Her face was pressed flat against the window. skin pale in the harsh glow of the streetlights. Both her hands were splayed against the glass, fingers dragging downward as if she were sliding in slow motion. Tears streaked her cheeks, catching the light. Her mouth was wide open, shaping a scream I couldn't hear. I looked toward the driver, waiting for him to notice me, to notice her. He never turned his head. His face stayed forward, hands steady on the wheel, like nothing was wrong, like that child didn't exist. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I flashed my headlights once, then again. Nothing. The girl's eyes met mine, and in them I saw pure panic. Not fear, you fake. Not something playful. Real, desperate terror. Then the car accelerated. It shot ahead, tires whining, and disappeared down the highway. For a split second, I froze, my hands locked on the steering wheel. Every warning I'd ever heard screamed at me to let it go. I reached for my phone, thinking to call 911, but the highway was empty, and the area was miles from the nearest town. If that was a kidnapping, which I was quite sure of, then by the time I explained it to a dispatcher, the car would be long gone. The face of the crying kid kept rotating in my mind. I got to take matters into my own hand. I sped up. I told myself I would just follow at a distance, just long enough to get a plate number. The car exited the highway without signaling, turning onto a narrow dirt road surrounded by woods. My headlights caught a cloud of dust, hanging in the air like fog. I hesitated. The rational part of me begged to turn around, but the other part, the one that couldn't forget that silent scream, kept my foot on the gas. The dirt road swallowed me whole. There were no streetlights or houses around. After driving like this for 10 to 15 minutes, the car ahead began to slow down. Then it stopped. My headlights washed over its rear bumper, illuminating the red dust drifting down. For a moment, nothing happened. I sat there with my engine idling, my pulse roaring in my ears. I told myself I'd stay in the car and call the cops right now, but then I thought about the girl. I stepped out. The night air was cold and smelled like damp earth. My footsteps sounded too loud, crunching on gravel as I took a few cautious steps forward. All of a sudden, the car doors opened. 2 men got out. Something about them was immediately wrong. Not just the fact that there were 2 of them, not 1. It was the way they looked. They had masks on. One had a cornstalker latex mask stretched over his face, the grin frozen and lifeless. The other wore a grotesque Momo mask, eyes bulging unnaturally, a smile twisted into something inhuman. In the glow of my headlights, the masks looked unreal, like something from a nightmare that had slipped into the real world. One of them had a knife. The other swung a heavy machete over his head, and they were sprinting in my direction. My brain finally caught up. This wasn't a kidnapping. It was a trap. I stumbled backward, almost balancing so I don't fall down. That's when I saw the little girl in the back seat. She was watching me with a creepy grin. Her innocent eyes were now scary with evil in them. She waved at me slowly, mockingly, like she were sharing some private joke. That was the moment something inside me broke, the moment I understood how close I was to dying. I ran. I don't remember turning. I don't remember thinking. I just moved. I yanked my car door open and threw myself inside, hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life, just as something slammed into my window. The machete struck the glass with a deafening crack, spiderwebbing at inches from my face. Shards sprayed across the dashboard. I screamed and slammed the car into reverse. Gravel flew as I tore backward, tires skidding, heart hammering like it was going to burst. I didn't look back. I didn't stop until the dirt road spit me back onto the highway. Even then, I kept driving, miles blurring together, my hands locked on the wheel until they ached. I didn't feel safe until I was home, door locked, lights on, sitting on my bed with my head in my hands. When I finally called the cops, I told them everything. They took my statement seriously. At least it felt that way. But days turned into weeks. No arrests, no follow-ups, no news. Sometimes I wonder how many of them stopped to help and probably didn't get a chance to get out alive. And every time I pass that stretch of highway near midnight, I turn my radio off and keep my eyes straight ahead, hoping I never see that devil kid or her accomplices again. I was flying to London to visit my grandmother. It was my first international flight, and the first time I was doing anything like this without my parents. I felt anything but independent sitting in Terminal 4 with 3 hours until boarding. The airport was massive, crowded, and overwhelming. Everyone seemed to know exactly where they were going, except me. I sat near my gate with my headphones on, trying to look calm while anxiety buzzed under my skin. That's when I realized I needed the restroom badly. I looked around for signs but couldn't find any. The terminal stretched endlessly in both directions, as crowds flowed past like a river I didn't know how to cross. I stood up, searching for anyone in a uniform I could ask, when an old man approached me.
Excuse me, dear. You look lost. Can I help you?
He was maybe in his 60s, with thinning gray hair and wide-rimmed glasses. He wore a cardigan and khakis, and carried a newspaper tucked under his arm. He looked like somebody's grandfather.
I'm okay.
I said automatically.
Are you sure? First time flying?
I hesitated, then nodded.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the restroom.
Ah, well, you're in luck. I'm on the 6:15 flight to London, too.
He gestured toward my boarding pass visible in my hand.
I'd be happy to keep you company. Make sure you don't get lost.
Something about that felt off, but I couldn't pinpoint what. He seemed nice and helpful, and I was lost, anxious, and 18, pretending to be more capable than I felt.
The restroom?
I reminded him. He paused for just a second too long, eyes scanning the terminal. Then he pointed past the food court toward a counter I hadn't noticed.
See that door behind the trash can? There's a hallway there. It leads to a quieter restroom, much nicer than the main ones.
I looked where he was pointing. There was indeed a door, partially hidden behind a large waste disposal unit.
Are you sure?
It seemed like a weird location for a bathroom.
Oh yes, I use it every time I fly through here.
He smiled again.
I'll wait here with your bags if you'd like.
Nah, that's okay. I'll take them.
I grabbed my carry-on and backpack and headed to the door. As I walked away, I glanced back once. The old man was watching me, still smiling. The door was unmarked, but he had been so specific and confident. Maybe it was one of those hidden airport secrets frequent travelers knew. I pushed the door open. The hallway beyond was dim, lit by flickering fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead. The walls were scuffed and dirty, nothing like the polished terminal. It smelled of dust and old carpet. This didn't feel right. I walked forward anyway, pulling my suitcase behind me. The hallway was narrow, barely wide enough for one person. It curved slightly, so I couldn't see the end. My heart started beating faster. 20 feet in, the hallway ended at a door marked storage, authorized personnel only. He had lied to me, or worse, he deliberately sent me here. I turned around and froze. He was right behind me, standing at the entrance to the hallway, blocking the only exit.
It's storage.
I stammered. My heart was pounding in my ears. He grinned as if my nervousness was amusing. His eyes raked all over my body as he started walking towards me, whistling some old tune. My palms started sweating as I looked for another exit, but the hallway was too narrow, and there was no way to get past him.
Oh, sweetie, I'm sorry. I could have sworn.
He chuckled, creeping closer. He was 10 feet away now. I pressed my back against the wall, clutching my suitcase handle like it could protect me. My phone was in my pocket, but my hands were shaking too badly to reach for it.
Please, let me past.
I whispered.
Yes, in a moment. We're just talking.
He was only 4 feet away now, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something sweet and cloying that made my stomach turn. My throat was parched. His hand reached out toward my shoulder. He was inches away. Suddenly, the door at the far end of the hallway opened, and a security guard stepped through, clipboard in hand. "Excuse me, sir. This area is for staff only." The old man froze. His hand dropped, and all the color drained from his face.
Yes, I was just telling her I gave her the wrong directions. For the restroom, I made a mistake.
The guard looked between us, his expression hardening as he took in the scene. "Miss, are you all right?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Sir, I need you to return to the main terminal, now." The old man nodded, turned, and walked back through the door without looking back. The security guard waited until he was gone, and then turned to me. "Are you traveling alone?"
Yes, first time.
"Stay in the main terminal areas. Don't follow anyone anywhere, even if they seem helpful. Understand?" I nodded, tears burning my eyes. He walked me back to my gate and stayed until I was seated in a public area again. I didn't see the old man for the rest of the waiting period or during the boarding, though he'd said he was on my flight. He'd lied about that too. The flight to London was 7 hours. I didn't sleep, couldn't stop replaying that hallway, his footsteps, his hand reaching toward me. When I landed at Heathrow, my grandmother was waiting at arrivals. She's small and frail at 73, but when she hugged me, I felt safer than I had in 12 hours.
How was the flight, darling? It was fine, Grandma.
I didn't tell her what happened, didn't tell anyone. I felt stupid for following him, ashamed that I'd been so naive and trusting. But I'm telling you this story now because I want other girls to know. Predators don't always look dangerous. Sometimes they look like somebody's grandfather. They offer to help when you need it most, and if someone tries to lead you away from crowds, cameras, and safety, don't go. I'm an insurance adjuster from Columbus, and I've been smoke-free for 4 years. I quit when my wife Sarah got pregnant. But 6 weeks ago, after the worst fight of our lives, I bought my first pack in years. I needed it to process the grief of losing my daughter, Lily. She was 7 years old when an active shooter at Riverside Elementary took her in the cafeteria. It took him 23 seconds to steal our princess. Sarah and I were drowning in different directions. She wanted to talk, to process, and attend support groups. I wanted the world to cease to exist. That night, she'd asked me to go to a grief counselor with her. I said no. She said I was abandoning her when she needed me most. We both said things we'd probably never be able to take back. So I got in the car and drove aimlessly until I came across this gas station off Route 40. I needed cigarettes and needed to not be in my own head for 5 minutes. I pulled in. The lot was nearly empty, except for this beat-up van parked by the pumps with the engine running. A guy was filling the tank, and in the back seat, visible through the window, a little girl, probably his daughter, was crying. I told myself it was none of my business. The kid probably wanted candy or something, and Dad had denied. Typical parenting stuff. But I couldn't stop looking. She had dark hair and pigtails and looked about Lily's age. I went inside, grabbed a pack of Marlboros, and paid the clerk. Through the window, I watched the man walk inside to pay for his gas. The girl was still crying, with her hands pressed against the window and her mouth open in a wail I couldn't hear through the glass. She saw me and mouthed,
Help me.
My blood went cold and my heartbeat picked up. The rational part of my brain said I was seeing things, that grief was making me paranoid, but my feet were already moving, carrying me back outside toward the van. The girl's face was red and blotchy from crying. When she saw me approach, she started hitting the window and pointing frantically at the front passenger seat. I peeped in and saw a woman slumped in the seat with her head lolling to the side. A dark stain was spreading across her temple, matting her blonde hair. I squinted a little harder and realized the woman was bleeding. Right then, the bell dinged and the guy walked out. I really looked at him for the first time. He looked to be about mid-20s, clean-cut, and was wearing a polo shirt and khakis. He looked like someone's friendly neighbor with that goofy grin, but there was something off about him. "Excuse me." He smiled, walking toward the van. "Need you to step away from my vehicle." "Your vehicle?" I asked. "Who's the woman?" "My wife. She's sleeping." His smile didn't waver. "She's bleeding." "She hit her head, sort of clumsy. I'm taking her to the ER." He reached for the door handle. "Now please, my daughter's upset. You're scaring her." The little girl screamed.
"He's not my daddy! He's lying! He took us!"
The man's face flipped in seconds. He was furious. He angrily smacked the window, and before I could move an inch, his hand went to his pocket and came out with a folding knife, the blade already exposed. "You should have minded your own business," he hissed, inching closer. I didn't have a weapon or a plan, but I'd lost my daughter 3 months ago, and this man had taken someone else's. My hand shot out and grabbed the gas pump still hanging from the van's tank. I yanked it out, and gasoline sprayed everywhere, specifically at him. The sharp smell filled the air. I pulled out my lighter and flicked it open. The flame danced in my hand. "Don't move," I warned. "Don't move or I'll light us both up." His eyes went wide. The knife was still in his hand, but he'd frozen. Gasoline dripped from his hair and clothes. One spark, and we'd both be gone. "Drop the knife." He didn't move. "Drop it!" "You're making a mistake. You don't know who we are." The knife clattered to the pavement. "Keys, toss them over here." He pulled them from his pocket with shaking hands and threw them toward me. I kicked them further away. "Now sit down. Hands on your head." He complied. I kept the lighter burning and kept it visible. My thumb was aching from holding the button, but I didn't dare let go. "Somebody call 911!" I shouted toward the store. The clerk's face appeared in the window with his phone already pressed to his ear. The little girl was still crying, but quieter now.
Mommy, wake up!
"Your mom's gonna be okay, sweetheart," I said, though I had no idea if that was true. "The police are coming. You're safe now." It took them 6 minutes to make it there. They found the whole story on his phone. He'd been catfishing single moms on dating apps. He'd flagged down this woman on the highway, pretending his car broke down and asking for a ride. When she stopped, he hit her with a tire iron, threw her in the passenger seat, and took off with her and her daughter. The woman, Jennifer Hayes, survived. Severe concussion and fractured skull, but alive. They said if I hadn't stopped him, he would have taken them somewhere and done things I wouldn't want to think or speak. The detective called me a hero and said I saved 2 lives, but I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a man who finally did something right in a world that had taken everything from me. I went home that night. Sarah was still awake, sitting in Lily's room, holding her stuffed elephant. I sat down next to her and told her everything. We cried together for the first time since the funeral. We're going to counseling now. It's not fixed, and I don't know if it ever will be, but we're trying. I was 19 and fresh off the plane from Sydney. I had gotten into UCLA in my exchange year, and my student visa allowed part-time work, which I needed badly to cover the insane expenses of living in Westwood. I applied everywhere, but nothing worked. Then I saw the ad on Craigslist seeking a fresher massage therapist. They offered flexible hours and great pay. The address was in Santa Monica. The building looked professional, with clean windows, potted plants, and a sign that read Serenity Wellness Spa. I walked in, and a woman at the desk smiled at me.
You must be Riley. I'm Sandra.
She was maybe 40, well-dressed, with this calm vibe that put me at ease immediately.
We specialize in therapeutic massage at Serenity Wellness.
Sandra explained as she walked me to her office.
Our clients are mostly elderly elites with chronic pain, joint issues, and back problems.
She handed me a pamphlet.
We provide full training. You'll shadow experienced staff for the first week.
It sounded perfect.
What's the pay? $15 an hour to start. $20 after your first month.
She leaned forward.
I know how hard it is being an international student.
I started that afternoon. The first hour was fine. Sandra showed me around and introduced me to 2 other girls who seemed normal. They were folding linens and prepping massage rooms. Everything looked above board. Then, one afternoon, Sandra pulled me aside.
Riley, one of our premium clients needs a massage at his residence in Malibu tonight.
She lowered her voice.
He's very wealthy and private. It'll be 1 hour of work, and you'll get $300 in cash.
My stomach flipped. The amount was more than I'd make in a week anywhere else, but something felt off.
Why so much? Discretion,
Sandra replied.
He values his privacy, and it's a bit of a drive.
She squeezed my shoulder.
You seem smart and trustworthy. This could be regular work for you.
Every instinct I had was screaming to turn it down, but $300 was good money. I could make rent, buy groceries, and not lie awake at night doing math in my head.
Okay,
I heard myself say.
I'll do it.
Sandra's smile widened.
Smart girl. Come back at 9:30. We'll go over the address and details then.
I left feeling sick, but told myself it would be fine. Rich people paid for convenience. That's all this was. That night, I was running a bit late. When I arrived, a black van was idling outside the parlor. As I got closer to the door, I heard muffled screaming from inside. I peered through the window and froze. 2 men were dragging a girl across the reception area. She looked about my age, with blonde hair and a torn shirt, mascara streaked down her face. She was fighting them, trying to dig her heels in and sobbing.
Please, I don't want to go back. He makes me do things I don't want to.
One of the men put his hand over her mouth and told her to shut up. Mr. Epstein is waiting, said another. You want to make this worse? The name didn't mean anything to me then, but the way they said it made my blood run cold. Sandra appeared from the back office, perfectly calm. She walked up to the girl and grabbed her face.
Stop being ungrateful, you witch! You have any idea how many girls would kill to be in your place?
The girl sobbed and thrashed as they dragged her toward the back of the van. I stood there, frozen, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. I turned to leave, and a hand shot out from the shadows near the doorway and clamped around my wrist. I gasped and spun around. Sandra stepped out from the dark corner, with her face inches from mine. The calm demeanor was gone. Her eyes were cold and predatory.
You shouldn't be here, Riley. I forgot something. You saw that?
She nodded toward the back.
That girl is stupid and ungrateful. We gave her everything, and she wants to throw it away. But you're smart, aren't you? Let go! That $300 job is still available. An opportunity to meet someone like Mr. Epstein. Do you understand that it comes once in a lifetime?
Her nails dug into my skin.
You could set yourself up for life. Or you could be stupid, like her.
I yanked my arm back as hard as I could, and when Sandra stumbled, I shoved her. She hit the reception desk, but I didn't care. I ran. I kept running until I was blocks away, gasping for air in a 7-Eleven parking lot. My hands were shaking, and I could barely hold my phone. I thought about calling the police, but realized I didn't have enough information. I'd seen a girl being dragged somewhere and heard a name I didn't recognize. I didn't go back for my bag or answer when Sandra called my phone 17 times that night. I blocked the number, deleted the Craigslist ad, and tried to pretend it never happened. I graduated and returned to the States. It was nearly out of my mind until I read the news exposing Jeffrey Epstein's inhuman deeds. I nearly puked as I read the details about the network of recruiters who'd lure young women with promises of massage work, modeling jobs, and opportunities. I Googled the spa in Santa Monica, but it had been closed years ago. There was no forwarding address or record of Serenity Wellness Spa anywhere. It seemed like it never existed. I think about that girl all the time, the one they dragged away. I don't know her name, don't know if she ever got out or if she's alive. And I regret not calling the police and chickening out. The what-ifs still keep me up at night. I'm 25 now with a real job, but I still can't see massage parlor signs without feeling sick and seeing that girl's face as they dragged her away. Wondering if she ever got home. Wondering how many others didn't. I've been driving the same ice cream truck for so long that the streets feel like grooves worn into my palms. Same blocks, same potholes, same cheerful jingle that sounds a little too happy once the sun starts dropping. I tell people it's honest work. Truth is, most days it's just work. You smile, you scoop, you wave, and you move on. I sell ice cream at Bousset Woods, where laughter fades fast into trees and water. Some evenings, the jingle feels too loud, like it's not meant for the woods. When the sun drops, I swear something listens from the trails, waiting for me to leave. That evening started like any other. Early summer, warm but not sticky yet. The park was thinning out, parents calling, kids groaning, sneakers dragging across mulch. I parked near the basketball courts, killed the engine, and let the jingle finish its loop before I shut it off. I was already thinking about heading home when I noticed the kid. He stood a few feet from the window, not bouncing or pointing or tugging on a parent's sleeve like the others, just standing there, alone and still. He couldn't have been much more than 8 or 9. He was very pale and skinny. His eyes were calm in a way that didn't fit a kid, like he was waiting at a bus stop instead of an ice cream truck. He came closer to the truck. "What'll it be, buddy?" I asked in my usual friendly tone. He looked up at me slowly. There was a scar on his forehead, deep and jagged, like it had split skin and healed wrong. "Choco vanilla," he said in a quiet, flat voice with no pleas or excitement. I reached into the freezer, and suddenly my eyes darted to the kid's hands resting on the counter. They were filthy, caked with mud. Not playground dirt, ground soil, like he'd been digging for hours. His knuckles were also bruised, and I could spot dried blood around. His clothes were stiff with dark stains. I got a weird feeling about him, but didn't want to jump to conclusions so fast. "You want something else?" He didn't answer, just watched me scoop. I handed him the cone without asking any more questions. Something about his face made my chest tighten. He took it, turned around, and started walking away. "Hey!" I leaned out the window. "Kid, you have to pay!" He didn't even flinch, just kept walking. I slammed the freezer shut and hopped down, irritation flaring. "Don't ignore me," I said, louder now. "That's not how this works." He was already halfway across the park. I followed, expecting him to bolt or laugh or do something normal. Instead, he walked at the same slow pace. No matter how fast I went, I couldn't close the gap. It was like the distance between us stayed fixed. At one point, I even wanted to turn around and let him have the ice cream, but my legs were out of control. It was like something magnetic in him pulled me towards him. I was following the kid, discarding my own free will. We entered the woods down the paved path that turned to dirt. Trees crowded in. The sounds of the park faded until all I could hear was my own breathing and the crunch of my boots. "Kid, this isn't funny," I called. "Come back!" He stopped. I stopped too. He turned around, and for the first time, he smiled. I've never seen anyone smile that wide, like he was baring teeth instead of grinning. My anger spiked. "This is funny to you? Stealing and running off?" He watched me for a few seconds, then ran straight into the woods. I chased him without thinking, branches slapping my arms, heart pounding. I caught glimpses of him between trees, small, fast, always just out of reach, until he ducked into an old cabin I didn't even know was back there. The place was rotting, half collapsed, with windows boarded up. I burst inside, chest heaving. "All right," I snapped. "Game's over." The cabin was empty. Dust hung in the air. No kid, no footsteps, just silence. I took a step back, ready to leave, when the floorboard under me gave way. I dropped hard, catching myself on splintered wood. Beneath the boards was a shallow pit, and inside it, bones, human bones. A child's skeleton was wrapped in rags that matched the clothes I'd seen on that boy. My stomach flipped. I stared at the cracked skull, at the fracture running through the bone in the same place as the scar. All of a sudden, I heard a soft chuckle right behind me. I froze. Goosebumps exploded across my arms. "Who's there?" I whispered, even though I already knew. The air felt heavy, like the cabin was holding its breath. I turned slowly, and I saw the boy again. This time he was standing in the doorway, and he wasn't smiling anymore. He was crying. Tears streamed down his pale cheeks. "You found me. Please, tell Mommy I love her." My vision blurred like I was about to faint, and I closed my eyes for a second. When I opened them again, the boy was gone. I stood there alone for God knows how long, then finally called 911. The police came. They confirmed the remains belonged to 8-year-old Ryan, who went missing 3 years back. Later, it was confirmed that Ryan was killed by a blow to the skull. I stood with his parents throughout Ryan's funeral. His mom cried into my shirt. His dad gripped my hand like he might fall apart if he let go. That night, I dreamed of a boy standing in the woods, holding a melting cone, waiting. I still sell ice cream at that park, but I never saw Ryan again, and I hope that means he finally went home. I was 21 when I took the night shift at a gas station off Route 17 because my communications degree turned out to be worthless and rent doesn't pay itself. Phil, the owner, walked me through the place the next day. He showed me where things were, what was expected, and how to work the register. "You'll get some strange customers sometimes," he said, "but you'll be fine." The station sat alone on a stretch where semis do 80 and headlights pass but never stop. I'd been there for maybe 40 minutes when I started feeling like I was being watched. I kept checking the security monitor but saw no one. Around midnight, I stepped out for a cigarette when I found this man standing across the highway. He was perfectly still and probably watching me. Suddenly, a truck thundered past between us, and when it cleared, he was gone. I stood there for a minute, staring at the empty space where he'd been, telling myself I'd imagined it. I didn't, because 20 minutes later, somebody knocked on the glass door. I looked up, and there he was. He was maybe 5'10", and had long brown hair that needed cutting. He was average and forgettable, the kind you'd walk past at the grocery store and wouldn't remember. "You open?" he asked, even though the open sign was glowing bright above his head. When I pointed at the sign, he chuckled, apologized, and stepped in. He moved through the aisle slowly, running his fingers along the shelves. I watched him on the monitor, with one hand near the panic button Phil had showed me. He picked up chips, put them back, touched a bottle of motor oil, put that back too. He picked up a candy bar, read the label, and put it back as well. Eventually, he walked to the counter with a pack of cigarettes in his hand. "Long shift, huh?" He smiled. I rang him up without answering. He counted out exact change, one coin at a time, as he kept trying to make conversation. I wanted to scream at him to move faster, but he seemed to be determined to stay put.
You work here by yourself?
He asked, handing me the amount.
No, my coworkers are in the back.
I lied.
That's smart.
He pocketed the cigarettes.
A pretty girl like you shouldn't be alone out here. A lot of weird people on these roads at night, you know?
The way he said it made my stomach turn.
Hey, can I use your bathroom?
Before I could tell him it was out of order or employees only, but he was already moving toward the back hallway. I buzzed him through and watched the monitor as he disappeared into the men's room. Minutes passed. My finger kept hovering over the panic button. I kept telling myself to press it, but what would I say? A customer is using the bathroom for too long? After about 10 minutes, the door finally opened. He walked out and came right up to the counter.
Hey, so the toilet's clogged back there. I tried fixing it, but made it worse.
He paused.
You should probably look before it floods. Don't want you getting in trouble.
My throat closed up.
All right, I'll check it.
I mean, you should. Like right now. It's pretty bad. Come on, I'll help you.
I opened my mouth to say it was fine, but his hand had already closed around my wrist first.
Just real quick.
I tried to yank my hand free and dig my heels, but his grip tightened and he pulled harder. I told him to let me go. He ignored my protests and chuckled. Panic flooded in. We were alone. I didn't know what to do. I glanced at the door. It was too far. Even if I ran, he'd catch me in no time. My heart started hammering. Tears pricked at the back of my eyes. The bathroom door was just a few feet away. Just then, the door chime rang, and a trucker walked in.
You got a bathroom?
The man's hand released my wrist instantly. He smiled at the trucker, nodded at me, and walked out calmly, like he had all the time in the world. Through the window, I watched him cross the lot until the darkness swallowed him. I kept staring at that spot where he disappeared, half expecting him to come back. My legs gave out. I sat behind the counter while the trucker used the bathroom. My wrist throbbed where he'd held it. There were red marks on my skin in the shape of his fingers. I immediately called 911. I don't remember what I said. It took them 20 minutes to arrive. I begged the trucker to keep me company till then. They checked the restroom. There was no clog. The toilet was fine. But sitting on the closed lid was a plastic grocery bag. Inside, they found duct tape with the end already torn off for quick application, a knife with its blade wiped clean, and a Ziploc bag full of pills crushed into powder. Everything was arranged neatly like a kit he'd assembled for a specific purpose. They took the bag and asked questions. One officer told me those pills were meant to cause rapid unconsciousness.
You probably wouldn't remember anything after,
he said.
That's the point.
I quit the next morning, texted Phil I wasn't coming back. He didn't try to change my mind. The cops are still investigating, but it doesn't seem to go anywhere. 3 weeks later, I connected with this girl who'd worked there before me on Facebook. She lasted 3 days, said something felt wrong but couldn't explain it. When I pushed, she told me Phil was always hiring young women for the night shift, said the turnover was insane. Most people don't last a week.
They just stopped showing up.
She said.
Some didn't even quit officially. They just disappear and never come back.
She told me I was lucky. It doesn't make me feel any better. I still think about the girls who didn't get lucky, with a guy lurking in the dark, hiding sinister motives. My name is Mitzi. I'm 16 and I live with my sister Lucy. She's 23 and has been my legal guardian since our parents died in a car accident 3 years ago. The night it happened, we had just flown back from visiting our aunt in Phoenix. Our flight landed at around midnight and we were exhausted, just wanting to get home. Thankfully, the airport was mostly empty, except for baggage claim, where 3 flights had arrived close together and everyone was fighting for space around the carousel. That's when the guy in the blue hoodie bumped into Lucy. He came out of nowhere, stumbling into her hard enough that she fell. Her purse flew off her shoulder, and everything scattered across the floor. His face was half covered by the hood and a medical mask, with only his eyes visible. They were dark eyes that kept darting around. He knelt to help gather her things, but something about the way he moved felt wrong. "Oh God, I'm so sorry. Let me help you. Are you okay?" His hands were shaking as he picked things up, holding each item just a second too long. Lucy snapped at him to just leave us alone. He stood up slowly with his hands raised, then disappeared back into the crowd.
Weirdo.
I muttered as I helped Lucy collect the rest of her stuff. She told me to grab our bags so we could get out of there. We loaded the trunk, and I asked if we could stop for pizza. Lucy said it was midnight, but I convinced her. We grabbed takeout and drove the rest of the way home. When we pulled into the driveway at around 12:40, Lucy reached for her purse, then froze.
What's wrong? I can't find my keys.
She dumped everything out onto the seat, but there were no keys.
I must have dropped them when that guy ran into me.
She groaned.
That's fine. I'll go ask Mrs. Whitmore. She has the spares.
Lucy waited while I brought the keys from our neighbor across. Then we let ourselves in. Inside, the house was dark and quiet, exactly how we'd left it. I said I was going to shower off the airport grossness and went to my room. I could hear Lucy's footsteps ascending the stairs. I was grabbing clean clothes when suddenly a shrilling scream echoed, followed by a loud thud.
Lucy!
I yelled and ran out of my room. Lucy was still upstairs, crying and yelling for me to get out and that someone was in the house. I froze in my doorway as she came running down the stairs, moving so fast she almost fell. Her face was white, with eyes wild, and blood ran from a cut above her eyebrow. Behind her, at the top of the stairs, was a man. I squinted and recognized him as the blue hoodie guy from the airport. He was laughing, swinging a crowbar in the air. Lucy screamed for me to run. I bolted toward the front door, but my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't get the deadbolt unlocked. Lucy crashed into me while trying to help. Both of us fumbled with the lock while he came down the stairs. "You dropped your wallet at the airport, sweetheart. I was just returning it, just being a good person." His voice was calm and wrong. He pulled Lucy's wallet from his pocket and tossed it on the floor. "Aren't you gonna thank me? I went through so much trouble trying to bring it back to you. Found your address, got your key, let myself in to wait for you. Both of you." Lucy screamed at him to get away from us. Tisk, tisk. He chuckled as he kept coming closer. I could sense his warmth. He was only a couple of feet away. I twisted the handle with all my might and finally got the door unlocked. I was about to pull it open, but he moved fast. His hand slammed against the door, holding it shut. "We're not done talking yet, girls." Lucy grabbed my arm and we bolted toward the guest bedroom. It was the only room downstairs with a lock. We threw ourselves inside and Lucy slammed the door, twisting the lock just as he reached it. The door shook as he pounded on it. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I told Lucy I was calling 911, and she told me to do it now. I dialed while Lucy pressed the dresser up against the door. I gave the operator our address and told her someone had broken into our house, and my sister was bleeding. The pounding stopped, and everything went quiet. Lucy pressed her ear to the door. We could hear him moving through the house with things crashing and drawers opening. He was searching for something. The operator said police were 5 minutes away. We huddled together behind the dresser, listening to him destroy our home. Then I heard the front door open with footsteps on the porch. He was leaving. The police arrived 4 minutes later. We were still barricaded inside, too scared to come out. The house was destroyed. Every drawer dumped out, cushions slashed, our bedroom torn apart. They dusted for prints but found nothing. He'd worn gloves. The detective showed us airport security footage of a man in a blue hoodie bumping into Lucy at baggage claim, but his face was covered. He said they'd do everything they could, but without a clear image or prints, there wasn't much to go on. That was 6 months ago. He was never caught. We installed cameras, motion lights, and new locks. I sleep in Lucy's room now because I can't be alone. But 2 weeks ago, Lucy found a note on her car with 4 words in messy handwriting. I still have keys. We showed the police and they increased patrols, but I know the truth. He's still out there, still watching, still has access to our lives in ways we can't understand. Lucy wants to act strong for me, but I hear her checking the attic every night. She's supposed to protect me, but how can she protect me from someone who has our keys and knows where we sleep? My son, Bryce, is 15, and like most teenage boys, he can be difficult sometimes. I love him, but there are days where he tests my patience. Like the day I caught him with his buddies making fun of Oliver Cox in the school parking lot. Oliver was this scrawny kid, with glasses so thick they made his eyes look huge. The other kids called him Creepy Ollie. I'd seen him getting shoved around before, and it made me sick. So when I pulled up and saw Bryce with Jake and Tyler circling Oliver, doing this exaggerated limp walk, I'd had enough. I got out and marched over. My son's face went from smug to horrified in seconds, while his friends scattered. Mom, we were just...
You were bullying your classmate. Apologize. Now.
Bryce mumbled something that might have been sorry. I turned to Oliver, put a hand on his shoulder, and flashed him an apologetic smile. Oliver's face flushed with gratitude. Thank you for standing up for me. He kept flashing me this shy, grateful smile as I took Bryce to the car. Throughout the ride, Bryce wouldn't look at me. He kept telling me that I made a mistake by taking Oliver's, but I really didn't get why. It took Bryce a few hours to come to terms with everything, but he eventually promised he would never bully another kid again. 3 weeks later, on the night of Valentine's Day, I was home alone. My husband was working overnight, and Bryce was at a sleepover. I was watching TV when around 9:30 the doorbell rang. I got up but couldn't see anyone through the peephole. I figured it was probably teenagers acting up again and went back to the TV. 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang again. It kept happening, over and over. By the 5th time, I was so annoyed I threw the door open and yelled that I'm calling the cops. Just then, something moved in the bushes. I shone my phone's flashlight toward the noise, and a head popped up. It was Oliver. Hi, Miss Thompson. I'm sorry about the doorbell. I was nervous. He was shivering in just a hoodie.
Nervous about what? Does your mom know you're here?
He shook his head. His teeth were chattering. I welcomed him inside and gave him a cup of tea.
Oliver, it's almost 10. What's going on?
I had to see you.
Why? Did something happen?
He set down the cup and stood up, then dropped to one knee. I laughed, thinking he was joking, but he wasn't. He pulled out a small velvet box. Mrs. Thompson? Florence? Will you be my Valentine? The smile vanished from my face.
Oliver, I think you're confused. I'm a 42-year-old married woman and your classmate's mother. I'm sure there's a nice girl at school who...
Please, just open it. He interrupted. His voice was shaking, and his eyes... Gosh, I can never forget the look in his wide, desperate eyes. I want you to see how much I love you. The word made my stomach turn. My hands trembled as I took the box and opened it. Instead of a ring, I found a human molar, roots still attached, edges crusted with dried blood. I shrieked and dropped the box. It hit the kitchen tile with a sharp crack.
Oliver, what the hell?
His smile widened, revealing the gap in his back teeth where the molar should have been. His gums were still oozing blood. I pulled it out myself, he said, as if proud.
Oliver, you need help. This isn't...
It is love,
he shouted.
You were nice to me. You stood up for me. That means you care. You have to be my Valentine, Florence. You must.
He grabbed a plate and hurled it at the wall. It shattered.
Oliver, stop!
I love you! Tears and snot ran down his face. He swept everything off the counter. The coffee maker, utensils, and knife all crashed to the floor. He started tearing off the walls. Why won't you love me back? What's wrong with me? He started hitting his head against the wall. Blood started oozing out and dripped on the floor. I'm so stupid. Nobody wants me. I dialed 911 with shaking hands and told them there was a 15-year-old having a breakdown in my kitchen, destroying things and hurting himself. Oliver collapsed, sobbing and pounding the tiles with bloody hands. The cops arrived quickly. 2 officers came in and slowly approached him while he rocked back and forth on the floor. Oliver looked up at me. His face was a mess of tears, snot, and blood. They got him up and walked him outside, where his parents had just pulled up. His mom was sobbing, and his dad looked like he'd aged 10 years. They kept apologizing to me, while Oliver stared at me from the back of the police car with that same unsettling smile. The next morning, the principal called and told me Oliver had been admitted for psychiatric evaluation. This wasn't the first incident. Last year, Miss Rodriguez broke up a fight where he was being bullied. A week later, he showed up at her house at midnight with roses and a 10-page love letter. When she rejected him, he had a breakdown in her yard. Anyone who showed him kindness became an obsession. His therapist said it was severe emotional neglect at home, that any positive attention triggered this reaction. I hung up and just sat there in my destroyed kitchen, staring at that tooth sitting in the velvet box on the floor. A 15-year-old ripped it to prove he loved me. I did the right thing that day in the parking lot. I know I did. But sometimes doing the right thing comes back to haunt you in ways you never imagined. I think about Oliver sometimes and wonder if he's getting better, wonder if he still thinks about me, and I hate that I'm scared of the answer. 2 years ago, something watched me from a third-floor balcony, and if I hadn't noticed it, my neighbor would have died that night. I was living alone in a quiet, aging apartment building on the east side of Bellingham, Washington. The building was old enough that the pipes knocked at night, and the hallway lights flickered, but nothing bad ever happened there. That was the reason I liked it. Nothing ever happened. That night, just before midnight, I walked to the corner store to buy cigarettes. The streets were empty. When I came back, I stood outside the front door of my building and dug through my pockets for my keys. That was when I felt like someone was watching me. It was not a strong feeling. It was just enough to make me stop moving. I looked around and saw no one. I even tried to listen for footsteps in case a creep followed me home, but again, I heard nothing. Suddenly, I looked up. I can't explain why, I just did. At first, my eyes kept moving all over the building. Then, I noticed the third floor, the balcony outside Mr. Newton's apartment. I saw a woman there. She is standing still and looking down at me. She was not leaning on the railing. She was just standing there. She wore a white bathrobe that moved slightly in the wind. The robe looked too thin for the cold night air. Her long hair was loose and blowing across her face. The pale moonlight made her skin look washed out and wrong, like the light was draining the color from her. Her face had this weird smile that made me feel uneasy. It was as she could see through me. I felt awkward, like I had caught someone watching me through a window. So I raised my hand and gave a small wave. She waved back. Her hand moved slowly, almost carefully. It seemed for a second that she was calling me to her. I got goosebumps behind my neck. Then she turned and walked back inside the apartment. I stood there for a few seconds longer than I should have. Something about the way she moved felt off. I kept thinking in my head that it must be Mr. Newton's wife waking up in mid-nap to get some fresh air on the balcony. Deciding not to overthink this interaction with Mrs. Newton, I unlocked the door and went inside. As soon as the door closed behind me, a thought hit me hard enough to make me stop walking. Mr. Newton's wife had died. She had passed away only a few weeks earlier after a long illness. I remembered the funeral flowers in the hallway. I remembered the quiet way Mr. Newton said thank you when people offered condolences. I remember that he lived alone now. If there was a woman inside that apartment, she was not supposed to be there. Cold shivers ran down my spine. I began climbing the stairs. Each step felt louder than usual. By the time I reached the 3rd floor, my heart was beating faster than it should have been. Mr. Newton's door was slightly open. That alone was strange. He was careful about locking his door. He was the type of man who double-checked his locks. I pushed the door open. Mr. Newton? There was no answer. The apartment was dark. I could smell something metallic in the air, but I could not tell what it was at first. I stepped inside. The light from the hallway fell across the kitchen floor. That was when I saw the broken glass. It was scattered across the tiles near the counter. I saw a dark smear on the floor that led from the bathroom toward the bedroom. My stomach tightened. I walked slowly into the bathroom. The sink was filled with bloody cotton pads, like someone had been trying to stop a wound from bleeding. The mirror had a bloody handprint smeared across it. There were drops of blood on the floor. I pulled out my phone and called 911. My hands were shaking. While I was speaking to the operator, I heard a sound from the bedroom. It sounded muffled, like someone was trying to breathe through something thick. I walked toward the bedroom. The floor felt unsteady under my feet. The pillows on the bed were ripped open. Feathers were scattered across the room like snow. I was scanning the room, trying to figure out which direction the sound came from, when suddenly the closet door slammed open and Mr. Newton rolled out onto the floor. His hands and feet were tied. His face was bruised and bleeding. His eyes were wide in terror, but he was alive. I ran to him. "Oh my God, who did this to you?" I freed him from the restraints and made him sit down, offering water so he could breathe properly. The police arrived quickly. They took him to the hospital. Later, he told them that 2 men had broken in and tried to rob him. He said he stabbed one of them in self-defense, but they overpowered him, tied him up, and locked him in the closet before leaving. When I asked him about the woman on the balcony, thinking she must be an accomplice of those robbers, Mr. Newton gave me a confused look. "There was no woman." His voice was calm. His eyes were not. I stopped asking questions after that. A few days later, I saw Mr. Newton moving out. I watched from my window as he loaded boxes into his car. I noticed him holding a white bathrobe. It looked exactly like the one the woman had been wearing that night on the balcony. I went outside. "Is that yours, Mr. Newton?" "No, it belonged to my wife. But why are you asking?" I don't recall what I said in reply. Whatever that woman was, it wasn't there to scare me. It was there because if I hadn't looked up that night, Mr. Newton wouldn't be alive. I'm 16 now, but I still remember my first flight like it happened yesterday. I was 5 and losing my mind with excitement about going to Disney World. My dad had booked us seats in a row of 3. He got the aisle, I got the middle, and some random woman got the window. I didn't care until we were in the air and I couldn't see anything. The woman kept blocking my view. I'd crane my neck, she'd shift, and I'd lose the angle. After 20 minutes, I was frustrated. "Dad, I can't see the clouds." The man sitting behind us leaned forward between the seats. He was old with snaky scars all over his face, but he had this really friendly smile, the kind that made you feel like he was everyone's favorite uncle, and he waved at me with long, crooked fingers. "Hey there, little guy. I got an empty middle seat back here. Why don't you come sit with me? You can have the window." My mom smiled at him and thanked him. My dad hesitated, but then nodded and told me I could move for just a bit. I happily climbed over and plopped down next to the window. Finally, I could see everything. The clouds resembled cotton candy, and the ground appeared like a toy model. I pressed my face against the plastic and giggled, when suddenly I felt his arm slide up my thigh slowly. I looked back, and the man was watching me with that same smile, but his eyes looked different now.
Pretty cool, huh?
He purred, flashing his crooked, uneven teeth.
You're such a good boy, so well behaved. What's your name, buddy?
Luther? I mumbled and went back to cloud staring.
So, where do you guys live? I bet it's a nice neighborhood.
His thumbs started making small circles on my leg. His touch was making me uncomfortable, and his questions felt invasive, but I was too excited about the view to really think about anything else. I told him we came from Ohio and that we were going to Disney World.
Disney World? That's so exciting! You're gonna have the best time. Which hotel are you staying at, Luther?
He leaned so close I could feel his breath hot on my ear. I said I didn't know, maybe the one with the castle. The man laughed, emitting a low chuckle that made my skin feel tingly.
I got a few of those, sweetheart. What's the name?
His hand squeezed my thigh.
Come on, you can tell me. We're friends now.
I don't remember. I snapped, wanting to get away from him, but he blocked me with his arm and leaned in closer. His breath smelled like coffee and something sour. He insisted I stay put, asking me our address back in Ohio and where I went to school. Now I was getting annoyed. I'd come back here to look at the clouds, not answer questions. Can you stop talking? I'm trying to see. The man's smile didn't change, but something in his eyes did. They became harder and colder. He told me he was just being friendly, and hadn't my parents raised me to be polite with adults. I told him he was bothering me and tried to get away, but he giggled and tightened his hold. Then he reached over and pinched my cheek hard enough that it hurt. His fingers dug into my skin, and he twisted a little, still smiling. You're a cute kid, Luther. Real cute. I jerked my face away, and tears welled up in my eyes. Stop it!
Luther?
My mom turned around in her seat.
What's wrong?
I told her how the guy kept prodding me and wouldn't leave me alone. The man immediately put his hands up. His face turned into the picture of innocence.
Hey, I was just trying to make conversation. Kids, you know how they are.
My mother's expression changed. She asked what kind of questions I was being asked. I told her everything. My dad was already standing.
Luther, come back here, now.
I climbed back over the seats. My dad's face was scary in a way that I'd never seen before, but it wasn't me he was angry with. The man avoided looking at any of us for the rest of the flight. He pulled out a magazine and stared at it without turning the pages. When we landed and everyone started getting their bags, he practically ran off the plane. He didn't even wait for the rows in front of him to clear. He just pushed past everyone and disappeared. My parents didn't say much about it, but my dad kept his hand on my shoulder the whole way through the airport, and my mom kept looking around like she was watching for something. We got to our hotel and my dad turned on the TV while we unpacked. A news channel was on. Then, we all stopped moving. The man from the plane was on the screen. His face filled the television with the same smile and the same eyes. But now he was in handcuffs, being led through an airport terminal by police officers. The news anchor was talking about how he'd been arrested for child trafficking and that he'd been trying to flee the country, how they'd been tracking him for months and he'd been using flights to identify and target children, collecting information about where they lived and where they were staying. I felt my body jerk as my father grabbed me and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. My mother was crying. I was 5 and didn't fully understand what I'd just dodged. I just knew the friendly man wasn't friendly at all. I'm 16 now, and I understand what almost happened. I understand that if I'd been polite, if I'd answered his questions, something terrible might have followed us off that flight. My bratty 5-year-old rudeness might have saved my life. For once, I'm grateful for that. I'm a pharmaceutical rep based out of Charlotte, and this happened 3 months ago when I was driving back from a conference in Asheville. It was around 11 at night, that dead hour when the highway feels like you're the last person alive. My gas light had been on for 20 miles, so when I saw a rundown station near the Pisgah Forest exit, I pulled in. The place looked like it hadn't been updated since the 90s. The overhead lights flickered. There were only 2 pumps and a small store with bars on the windows, and I was the only car there. I got out and started filling my tank. About halfway through, I got this crawling sensation on the back of my neck, like someone was watching me. I looked up and saw a man standing on the other side of the pumps, staring at me with this smile that made my stomach turn. I tried to ignore him, focused on the numbers climbing on the pump. Every second felt like an hour. Finally, when I couldn't take it anymore, I snapped at him.
What's your problem? Why are you staring at me?
He tilted his head and his smile widened. You look just like my wife. His voice had this dreamy quality to it. The hair, the eyes, even the way you stand. He took a step closer. It's uncanny. My hand tightened on the pump handle.
I'm not your wife.
No, he agreed, still smiling. But you could be. You have the same energy. The way he said energy made my skin crawl. I wanted to get in my car and leave, but my tank was only half full, and I still had 2 hours of dark highway ahead. I forced myself to finish pumping, screwed the cap back on, and got in my car. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. The sign on the pump said cash only. I had to go inside to pay. I sat there for a full minute, trying to convince myself to just drive off, but I couldn't steal gas over some weirdo's smile. I looked around the lot. I couldn't see him anymore. Maybe he'd left. Maybe I'd overreacted. I walked to the store, checking over my shoulder every few steps. The bell dinged when I entered. The cashier, an older guy with tired eyes, looked up from his magazine.
Pump 2.
I said, keeping my voice steady.
And a bag of Doritos and a Coke.
While he rang me up, I kept glancing out the window. There was no sign of the man. Maybe he was just passing through. Maybe he really had thought I looked like someone he knew. People say weird things sometimes. I paid, grabbed my stuff, and walked back to my car. The parking lot was empty now, except for my Honda. Relief flooded through me. I was 3 steps from my driver's door when I heard his voice behind me. I killed my wife. I froze, every muscle in my body locked down. She was cheating on me. His voice was conversational, like he was telling me about the weather. Found her with him in our bed. I turned slowly. He was standing maybe 10 feet away with his hands at his sides. Even in the dim light, I could see dark stains covering them. I put her body in the woods. He continued, lifting his hands to show me. Right back there, not even a mile in. She's all wrapped up in plastic. The smile was gone now. His face was completely empty. I screamed and ran for the store. I heard footsteps behind me, but instead of following me, he bolted toward the tree line and disappeared into the darkness. The forest just swallowed him whole. The bell dinged as I burst through the door. The cashier looked up, startled. What's wrong?
The man! He said he killed his wife! He said her body's in the woods! His hands were covered in blood!
I was gasping, pointing at the woods. Slow down. What man?
The one who was out there! He was staring at me! He said he killed his wife and showed me his hands! They were covered in...
The cashier's face went pale. He pulled out his phone and called 911. The police arrived in maybe 10 minutes, but it felt like hours. I sat in the back of the cashier's office, shaking, trying to explain what happened. 2 officers went into the woods with flashlights, while another stayed with me, asking questions I could barely understand. It took them 40 minutes to find him. He was sitting under a tree, sobbing. His hands covered his face, still stained with blood. Next to him was a freshly dug pit, not even properly covered yet. Inside was a shape wrapped in black plastic. They pulled back the plastic enough to see a woman in her mid-30s with multiple stab wounds to the chest. She'd been dead for maybe 3 hours. The detective told me later that the man's name was Marcus Boone. His wife, Emma, had filed for divorce 2 weeks earlier, and friends confirmed she'd been having an affair. He'd killed her in their home that night, wrapped her up, driven her out to the woods, and buried her in the dark. But instead of fleeing away, he stayed there until he saw me. I asked the detective why he thought he had approached me. He told him I didn't know. I asked him whether he thinks he'd hurt me if I hadn't screamed and run. Nobody seemed to have any answers. The therapist I'd been seeing says I might never know, and that's something I have to accept. I don't drive that highway anymore. I don't stop at gas stations alone after dark. And whenever someone stares at me too long, I hear his voice in my head, saying I look just like his wife. I was 19 years old when this happened, but till today, when I close my eyes and imagine that night on the highway, I get shivers down my spine. It was the same week I bought my first bike with my own money. I was proud of it, and I wanted an excuse to ride it as much as possible. That night, I picked up my girlfriend and took her for a ride through the back roads near the highway. We talked for a while, and I lost track of time. By the time I dropped her off at her house, the sky was already darkening. When I finally started riding home, the road felt quieter than normal. Cars were still driving on the highway beside me, but the area around the road felt empty. There were no pedestrians. There were no open shops. There were no houses nearby with lights on. There was only the road, the trees, and the sound of passing vehicles. About halfway home, my bike suddenly felt heavier. I slowed down and noticed that the back tire was wobbling. I stopped and looked down. The tire was flat. I felt annoyed, but I wasn't worried. I was not far from home. I decided to walk the rest of the way. I got off the bike and started pushing it along the side of the highway. Cars and trucks continued speeding past me, and their headlights flashed across the trees. The woods on the side of the road looked darker than the rest of the area, and I kept glancing at them without really knowing why. That was when I started to feel uncomfortable. I felt like something was watching me from inside the trees. I tried to ignore the feeling and kept walking. Within the next few minutes, I noticed movement behind one of the bushes near the edge of the woods. It was a small movement, but it was enough to make me stop. A few seconds later, I heard a quiet sound. It was a soft meow. It sounded like a kitten. I felt concerned when I heard it. The woods were right next to the highway, and I imagined a small animal wandering into traffic and getting hit. I also felt bad thinking about a kitten being lost and alone at night. Secondly, my little sister was 10 years old then, and she always nagged my parents asking for a furry pet. I thought if I take the poor cat home, it'll be saved from a horrible death, and my sister will be very happy. So I put my bike on its stand and walked toward the bush where I had seen the movement. When I reached it, there was nothing there. I stood still for a moment, listening carefully, trying to spot the location of the kitten. I heard the meow again. This time it came from a different direction, slightly deeper in the woods. I turned and took a few steps toward the sound. Then I heard it again, from somewhere else. Each time I followed it, the sound came from farther away. I assumed the kitten was scared and moving around to avoid me, but I was also adamant about finding it. I kept following it. I did not realize how far I had gone until the sounds of the highway became faint. The trees blocked most of the remaining light, and the woods became darker and quieter around me. The meowing started to sound different. It was not weak or desperate like an animal in distress. It sounded even and controlled. The sound repeated in the same exact way each time. That was when I started to feel nervous. I stopped walking and looked around me. I realized I could no longer see the road. I could not even see the glow of the headlights through the trees. Giving up hope of bringing the kitty home, I turned back to leave. But as soon as I did, I heard the meow again. It was right beside me. I turned my head back slowly. There was a small shrub next to me. Something pale was visible through the trees. I assumed it was the kitten. I stepped closer. The leaves moved, and a head slowly rose up from behind the shrub. It was not an animal. It was a woman. Her skin looked pale and dirty. Her hair was messy and uneven. Her eyes were wide and focused directly on me. She lifted her head higher and made a low purring sound in her throat. It sounded exactly like a cat. Everything made sense to me in that terrifying second. My body froze when I realized what I was seeing. For the last 15 minutes that I had been following the kitten, I was actually getting lured deep in the forest by this scary-looking woman. I had no idea what her intentions were, but her face definitely hinted she had evil plans in mind. All of a sudden, she smiled, and the fear hit me like a brick to the face. I screamed and ran. I ran through the woods as fast as I could. Roots caught my feet, and I almost fell more than once, but I did not stop. I heard footsteps behind me along with the purring sound behind me. I glanced back to see if she was chasing me, and she was, but she was chasing me on all fours like an animal. I reached the edge of the woods and saw my bike. I ran to it, jumped on, and fired it up immediately. The tire was still flat, and the bike wobbled badly, but I kept riding. I did not look back again. I rode all the way home. When I got inside, I locked the door and sat on my bed in the dark for a long time. I did not tell anyone what happened. I knew no one would believe me. I even tried to convince myself that I imagined it, but sometimes, late at night, when everything's quiet, I hear a soft meowing outside my window. I never look outside when I hear it. I never follow it, and I never will. My dog Ranger died this morning. He was old. His fur had turned gray around his eyes, and his legs had started to shake when he walked. The veterinarians said that it was peaceful, and that Ranger went in his sleep. I nodded, thanked him, and held Ranger's collar in my hands the whole drive home. I didn't cry right away. I only cried when I sat on my bed and realized that the house felt too quiet again. It felt the same way it did that night. I was 9 years old and living with my parents in a small house on the edge of Bozeman, Montana, where the streets are dark at night and the wind always sounds like something is moving through the trees. My parents were out for a business dinner. They told me that they would be gone for a few hours or possibly overnight. They told me to lock the doors and keep Ranger inside. Ranger was a German Shepherd with a blocky head and a chest like a barrel. He slept at the foot of my bed every night. That night, I remember feeling proud to be home alone. I also remember feeling uneasy about it a few moments later. The house sounded louder than usual. The refrigerator hummed, the pipes knocked, the trees scraped against the siding when the wind picked up. Ranger kept lifting his head and listening. I tried to play video games, but I kept pausing the screen so I could listen to the house. Everything was all right until I heard the back door. The sound was not loud, and it was not a bang. It was the soft sound of the latch being moved. I told myself that it was the wind, but seconds later, I could hear footsteps in the kitchen. They were slow and careful. They did not sound like my parents. Ranger stood up. He did not bark, and he did not run. He growled in a low and steady way. I felt my stomach drop. A shadow slid under my bedroom door. Someone stopped outside my room. I did not breathe. The door creaked open. With terrified eyes, I noticed a man standing outside my room. He was tall, and he wore a dark jacket. His face was half hidden by the hallway light. I could feel his eyes on me and guessed he was smiling too. He quickly walked inside and grabbed my arm, yelling,
"You're coming with me, kid."
I screamed as he pulled me out of bed and dragged me toward the hallway. My feet scraped across the carpet. I could not catch my breath. I remember thinking very clearly that I was not going to see my parents again. I was crying when he dragged me out like he was planning to take me far away from this world. My feet dropped down the stairs as he continued. Just when I thought I had no chance of surviving against this guy, I saw Ranger storming down the stairs, barking like a hound. Without wasting a single second, Ranger attacked him. He ran at the man with full force, his teeth clamped onto the man's arm. The man screamed and tried to shake him off.
"Ah, stupid dog!"
But Ranger did not let go. The man continued struggling with him. The more he tried to get rid of him, the more Ranger tightened his jaw. At one point, I thought Ranger would overpower him, but all of a sudden, the man lifted Ranger with his other arm and threw him out the open back door. I was a kid, so it didn't hit me that Ranger too was merely a young pup. I heard Ranger hit the concrete outside. He cried out once in pain and then went silent. I took the opportunity and started screaming with all my strength. We lived in a close neighborhood, so my screams were heard, and one by one, all the porch lights of the neighboring houses started turning on. The man froze. He didn't expect things to go this way. A neighbor shouted something. The man didn't wait anymore. He left immediately. I watched him vanishing into the night. I ran and broke down, crying next to Ranger. He was lying on his side. He was breathing, but it was shallow and fast. I held his head and cried into his fur, while my neighbors informed the cops and my parents. The cops came, and Ranger was taken to the emergency veterinarian in town. Thankfully, he survived. His rib was broken, though. He came home with bandages, medication, and a plastic cone around his head. He slept in my room for months after that. He followed me everywhere and never left my side again. The cops suspected it was a kidnapping attempt, from which Ranger saved me. The man was never caught, and I couldn't remember his face clearly enough to guide the investigation well. But I never stopped checking the locks after that night. This happened 20 years ago. Ranger stayed with me through middle school, high school, college, my first job, and my first apartment. He was there when I moved back to Bozeman. He was there when my parents sold the house. He even attended my wedding as my best man. And finally, this morning, he took his last breath. I knelt on the floor and held his head just like I did when I was 9 years old. I thanked him for this life that he gave me. I told him that I loved him, and he was a great friend. Dogs may not understand words, but he understood my voice. I believe that he always did. I like to believe that he's still watching somewhere. I like to believe that he's still standing between me and whatever darkness comes next. I hope that in another life I get to meet him again, so I could spend my whole life protecting him the way he protected me. Goodbye, Ranger. Thank you for choosing me. This happened when I was 9 years old living in Louisville. My parents left for my uncle's house to spend the weekend there and watch the Kentucky Derby, leaving me and my sister home alone. That night didn't start scary at all. It actually started kind of perfect. My 15-year-old sister Kathy was going out for a movie night with her friends. Before she left, she handed me some wrinkled bills.
Order pizza from that place you like, and lock the doors.
When the front door closed behind her, the taste of freedom felt amazing. I was having a blast. I turned the TV up and sprawled on the couch. For the first time in life, no one was bickering at me about bedtime or homework. An hour later, I felt hungry, so I picked up the phone to order pizza. I was scrolling through the menu on the app when I heard a soft jingle. At first, I thought it was coming from the TV. Then, I muted it. The ice cream truck jingle drifted in through the open window. It was already dark outside, the kind of dark where the streetlights buzz and bugs smack into them. Ice cream trucks didn't usually come this late, not on our street. I peeked outside. The truck was parked near the curb, its lights glowing too bright against the empty road. There were no kids around, just the truck and the music looping over and over. Seeing the truck waiting on an empty street did feel weird, but at the same time, my cravings for ice cream hit me hard. I grabbed my sneakers and ran to the truck. The ice cream man leaned out of the window. He was older, with lines on his face and eyes that were so tiny that I could barely see his pupils. He smiled, but it didn't feel friendly. Late night snack? Yeah, my sister gave me money. He nodded slowly. Your mom cool with that? I hesitated. Then, I said the dumbest thing possible. My parents aren't home. They're out of town. Something about his demeanor changed right away. His smile didn't disappear, but it stretched, like he was thinking really hard about something. Just you and your sister? He asked. Yeah, she's coming back later. How much later? I took a step back. My stomach felt weird. I don't know. He didn't reach for ice cream. Instead, he leaned closer and lowered his voice. You got cameras around your house? Security stuff? CCTV? That was it. That was the moment my brain finally realized I had already shared too many personal details with a stranger. I forgot something, I said, and I ran back home. I didn't even look back. I slammed the door, locked it, then locked it again. I stood there, listening, heart pounding, waiting for him to drive away. Eventually, he did. I turned every light on and sat on the couch with the TV way too loud. Pizza forgotten, ice cream forgotten. I kept telling myself I was overreacting, that he was just a weird guy, but I still felt scared being alone. At some point, I must have fallen asleep. I woke up because my mouth was dry. The house was dark again, with the sensors going off. The TV was still on, but low. My phone said 10:30 p.m. Kathy wasn't back yet. I grabbed a water bottle from the kitchen table and took a long drink. I was thinking of calling my sister, telling her to hurry back, when the cap slipped from my fingers. It rolled across the floor and disappeared under the dining table. I sighed in annoyance and walked towards the dining table. The long table cover made it difficult to spot the bottle cap in the dark. I got down on my knees and crawled under the table. I grabbed the cap and turned to crawl out when I stopped. There was a soft click, like someone unlocking the door. I froze. Mom and Dad aren't home, so there's no way Kathy will enter so sneakily. I heard it again, slower this time. The sound of a lock turning. It was our back door. My heart dropped into my stomach. I remembered Kathy telling me to lock the doors. I remembered thinking I already had, but I forgot about the back door. I stayed under the table, holding the bottle cap so tight it hurt. My breathing sounded too loud in my ears. Heavy but careful footsteps entered the kitchen. Whoever it was didn't want to make much noise. The footsteps got louder, and I saw a pair of legs wearing big, dusty boots. They moved slowly across the floor. The person opened drawers, closed them. He walked into the living room and then into the hallway. He wasn't stealing anything. He was searching. My whole body started shaking. I bit down on my sleeve to keep from crying. I told myself to stay still. He won't see me as long as I stay invisible. The footsteps came back to the kitchen, right where I was hiding. They stopped next to the table. I saw the shadow bend down. I smelled something sour, like sweat. Then, a familiar voice whispered, I know you're hiding somewhere. I'll find you. I thought I was going to pass out. My phone was on the couch, and there's no way I can call for help. If I scream, I'll be dead. I was praying to God to save me somehow when the front door opened.
Gary, I'm home.
Kathy called out to me. Everything happened at once. The man sprinted away. The back door slammed open and shut. Kathy ran in, yelling my name, and found me curled up under the table, crying so hard I couldn't breathe. She called 911 when I finally managed to tell her about an intruder and that ice cream truck guy. The police came and found footprints near the back fence. He left no fingerprints, though, which tells me he came with a plan. Nothing was stolen from our house. And this part still messes me up, because he didn't come for stuff. He came for me. The man was never caught. and the cops said since I didn't see the face of the intruder, there's no solid evidence that it was the ice cream truck guy. But I know it was him. I was 23 and hated going home, which already sucked for about a dozen reasons. But the absolute worst was my new stepsister, Megan. Mom had married her dad a year ago, and that Valentine's Day they were throwing this massive party to celebrate their first anniversary that I couldn't bail out of. On the surface, Megan seemed normal, with her pretty blonde hair and harmless smiles, but something about her unnerved me right from the start. During family meals, she insisted on sitting next to me and would randomly touch my arm or shoulder. In the hallway, she brushed past me even when there was clearly enough room for both of us. Sometimes I caught her staring at me too. I mentioned it to Mom a couple of times, but she just laughed. But a year had passed, and instead of getting better, it got worse. The party started around 8. Mom went absolutely overboard with everything red and pink. Heart-shaped balloons covered the ceiling, candles were on every surface, and romantic music played from speakers in every room. The whole setup felt suffocating. I showed up because I had to, but my plan was simple. I'd stay for an hour, make some excuse about meeting friends, and get out. But then, this dark-haired girl, Daisy, walked in. She was visiting from college for the weekend, and was apparently one of Megan's old friends. We started chatting by the drinks table and just clicked immediately. Before I knew it, 2 hours had passed and I'd completely forgotten about my escape plan and Megan. Around 11, Daisy's phone rang. She excused herself to take the call. I grabbed another beer and was scrolling through my phone when I felt that familiar crawling sensation. I looked up to find Megan standing right in front of me. I hadn't heard her approach. My palms started sweating. Her smile looked off, stretched too tight across her face.
Can we talk?
She purred with a fake grin.
Please, Ryan. It's important.
Something in her tone made my stomach drop. About what? She grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward the hallway, away from the crowd. Her grip was surprisingly strong. When we were alone, she stopped and turned to face me. Her hands were trembling and she wouldn't look away.
I need to tell you something. I've been trying to say it for so long, but I couldn't find the right moment.
Megan, what's going on?
I'm in love with you, Ryan. I've been in love with you since the day our parents introduced us. I know you feel it too. I see the way you look at me.
My blood went cold. Megan, what the hell? You're my sister.
I'm not. We're not related by blood. I'd ask Dad to divorce your mom.
She sobbed, stepping closer.
I've been waiting for you to say something, to make the first move, but you never do. So I'm saying it now. I love you, Ryan.
This is wrong. It won't ever happen. Get away from me, Megan.
Please, Ryan. We're meant to be together. Is it because of Daisy? Did she...
You're insane. Just get away from me. I turned and walked away before she could respond. My hands were shaking badly, and I felt nauseous. I went around the side of the house where no one could see me and pulled out the cigarettes I'd been trying to quit. I lit one with trembling fingers, trying to calm down and figure out what the hell I was supposed to do, when suddenly a scream ripped through the night. It was high-pitched, terrified, and unmistakably familiar. And it was coming from the woods behind our house. I dropped the cigarette and ran, crashing through the trees with my phone flashlight barely cutting through the darkness. The branches whipped my face, but I didn't stop until the clearing gave way and I could spot 2 figures in the dark. Daisy was on the ground, with blood pooling dark and thick beneath her head. Megan stood over her, gripping a jagged rock with both hands. Blood covered the stone and spattered across Megan's face, her pink dress and arms as she brought the rock down, hard.
Ryan is mine.
Megan was saying, over and over, as she kept striking Daisy again and again. My legs wouldn't move. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. Megan looked up and locked eyes with me. She was grinning ear to ear.
She was trying to take you from me. But you're mine, Ryan. You've always been mine. From the first moment I saw you.
Something in me finally snapped. I stumbled backward and ran toward the house, screaming for help. Mom and her dad came running, followed by the guests. I couldn't form words, just pointed toward the woods with a shaking hand. Someone called 911. My legs gave out and I collapsed on the deck, unable to stand or breathe. The cops found Megan in the woods, still kneeling beside Daisy's body. She didn't resist arrest, just kept repeating the same thing over and over.
Ryan is mine!
Daisy died before the ambulance arrived. That was 6 months ago. Megan's awaiting trial right now. There's been psych evaluations, competency hearings, and endless legal proceedings. My mom and her dad divorced 2 months after it happened. We don't talk about that night or anything anymore. But the letters keep coming every single week with the same message every time.
I'm still waiting for you, Ryan. I was patient. You're mine. Forever.
I've moved twice since it happened and changed my number 3 times. The trial's coming up soon. They want me to testify about everything. I'll do it. I owe that much to Daisy. I just keep hoping that when it's finally over, when Megan's locked away for life, the letters will stop. But deep down, I don't think they ever will. Because in Megan's mind, I'm still hers. I've always been hers. And no prison wall is gonna change that. I met Claire freshman year of high school and we became best friends by my sophomore year. She was ambitious, but her family was as broke as mine. When we graduated, she went to community college while I worked full-time at a call center. Then, something changed. In the spring of 2007, Claire started showing up with expensive stuff, like designer handbags and new iPhones. Whenever I asked her how she bought such expensive stuffs, she would mention a guy named Jeffrey, who was a billionaire. One day, she told me that Jeffrey was taking a group of girls to his private island next month, and he heard about me from Claire and wants me to join them too. I should have been more skeptical. Should have asked why a billionaire cared about 2 nobodies from Florida. But I was 18, exhausted from 40-hour work weeks, and desperate for something better.
So, what's the catch? None. He just wants to meet you first. Make sure you're serious and have potential.
She squeezed my hands.
Come to his office tomorrow. If you don't like him, you don't have to go.
The next day, Claire picked me up and drove to an address in Palm Beach. But when we pulled up, it wasn't an office building. It was a massive estate behind walls and gates. Claire buzzed the intercom, and the gates opened. Inside felt wrong from the start. Everything was too quiet and luxurious. The foyer had marble floors and paintings that looked like museum pieces. A woman in her 20s walked past wearing a bikini and carrying drinks. She didn't acknowledge us, just disappeared down a hallway.
Claire, It's fine. He's super casual. Come on.
She led me through the house, past rooms with massage tables, exercise equipment, and more young women barely dressed. My stomach started churning. We stopped at a door at the end of a long hallway. Claire knocked twice, then opened it without waiting. The room looked like a luxury hotel suite with leather furniture, windows overlooking a pool, and soft music playing. And in the center was a massage table. Behind a desk sat Jeffrey Epstein. He looked to be in his late 40s. He had thinning hair and wore a white button-down and slacks. He looked up as we entered, and his eyes went straight to me. His gaze traveled up and down slowly, and I felt a shiver run down my spine.
This is Anna,
Claire said brightly.
the friend I told you about.
Anna. He stood up and came around the desk.
Claire says you're a smart and hard worker, looking for opportunities.
Yeah.
My voice came out small.
She's perfect. We can't just wait to go to the island.
Claire said. Jeffrey smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes.
We'll see.
He walked to the massage table and ran his hand along it.
But first, I'd like to get to know the girls I'm investing in. Make sure we're compatible.
Compatible?
I asked. Instead of answering, he started unbuttoning his shirt.
I've been so tense lately. All this work and stress.
The shirt came off.
Claire, you know what I need.
Claire moved immediately, like she'd done it before.
Of course.
She looked at me and gestured toward the table.
Come on, Anna. It's just a quick massage. He does this with everyone.
My feet wouldn't move. Jeffrey was lying on the table now, face up, staring at us. His smile had gotten wider.
Anna, don't be rude.
Claire snapped.
You don't need to be.
Jeffrey's voice was smooth.
I just need your hands on my shoulders.
His eyes locked on mine.
Unless you're not serious about the island, about the opportunities I'm offering.
Claire was already at the table, putting her hands on his chest. She looked at me.
It's nothing, Anna. Just do it.
But everything in my body was screaming danger. His gaze wanted me to curl under a blanket and never peek out. I looked at Claire, the massage table, and the other girls who were wandering around like props, and shook my head.
No.
I stepped back.
I can't do this.
Jeffrey's smile vanished, and his eyes went cold.
Excuse me?
I need to leave.
You're making a mistake.
He sat up.
Do you have any idea what I'm offering you? The people I know, the doors I can open.
He swung his legs off the table.
Girls like you don't get chances like this. You work your little dead-end jobs, struggle, and disappear. But I'm offering you something real.
Anna, please.
Claire grabbed my arm.
You're embarrassing me.
I pulled away from her.
I'm leaving.
If you walk out that door,
Jeffrey hissed,
you'll regret it for the rest of your life.
I walked out. Claire caught up with me in the foyer.
What's wrong with you? Do you know how hard I worked to get you this opportunity? That's not an opportunity, Claire.
I couldn't find the words.
You're being dramatic. It's just a massage. I've done it dozens of times. Dozens?
My stomach turned.
Claire, what is this? What's happening on that island?
Her face went blank.
Nothing you need to worry about anymore.
She turned and walked back toward Jeffrey's office, leaving me alone. I found my own way out, cut contact with Claire completely, blocked her number, deleted her from social media, and refused to engage when she tried reaching out. For 2 years, I tried to convince myself I'd overreacted, that it was just a weird rich guy with boundary issues, and Claire was fine. Then, 2019 happened. Jeffrey Epstein was arrested, and the charges pressed were all over the news. I searched for Claire's name in the court documents and found it buried in a witness list. She was referenced as a victim and recruiter. This happened last week when I was driving down Interstate 40 during a thunderstorm. I gripped the steering wheel with both hands, leaning forward like that might somehow help me see better through the windshield. My daughter was strapped into her booster seat behind me, humming to herself, completely unaware of my worried mind. I just wanted to get home. We were still miles away when she spoke up, her small voice cutting through the sound of rain and wipers.
Mom, I really have to pee. I can't hold it.
I glanced at the dashboard clock, then the empty stretch of road ahead. I couldn't see any exits or gas stations. There were just trees, darkness, and rain. I told her to try and hold on, that we were almost there, but I could hear it in her voice. this wasn't a negotiable situation. That's when I saw the sign of a public washroom arriving in 0.2 miles. Relief washed over me, knowing I can finally pull over and stretch my legs. It was barely more than a pull-off, a concrete building sitting alone under a flickering yellow light. There were no other cars, though, just open highway on both sides and woods pressing in behind it. I hesitated for a second, but my daughter was already unbuckling herself, panic creeping into her voice. So I slowed down and pulled onto the shoulder, gravel crunching under my tires. The moment I shut off the engine, the silence felt wrong. The rain seemed louder without the hum of the car. I grabbed my daughter, threw my hood over my head, and ran for the restroom, my shoes splashing through puddles. Inside, it smelled like damp concrete and disinfectant. The lights buzzed overhead. There were 4 stalls on the left and 3 sinks on the right under one big dirty mirror. I chose the far stall without really thinking about why. We got in, locked the door, and helped my daughter up. That was when the feeling hit me. It wasn't fear, exactly. More like awareness. Like my body had picked up on something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. The hair on my arm stood up. My stomach tightened. I told myself I was being ridiculous. It was late, I was tired, and horror stories have a way of creeping into your head when you're alone. I focused on my daughter, counted her breaths, listened to the rain pounding the roof. She finished, and I was just reaching for the lock when I heard footsteps entering. They echoed off the tile, slow and deliberate. Suddenly, 2 male voices spoke, which immediately stopped me from opening the door.
Are you sure they're here?
Of course, didn't you see the car outside? My heart slammed so hard I thought it might make noise. I lifted my daughter off the toilet and pressed her against my chest. My hand clamped over her mouth before she could ask what was wrong. Her eyes went wide, confused and scared. The footsteps moved closer. One man laughed softly.
Yeah, they're inside one of these stalls.
I didn't think. I lifted my daughter back onto the toilet seat and climbed up after her, balancing awkwardly, holding her as high and tight as I could. My legs shook so badly I thought I might fall, but I didn't dare move. The men started to check the stalls one by one. I could see shadows shifting beneath the divider. They stopped in front of us and tried the door. It rattled once, then again, harder. They realized it's locked from the inside. We know you're in there, you and your little girl. My daughter started to tremble. I whispered into her hair, telling her not to move, not to make a sound.
We don't want to hurt you. You can walk out of here just fine. We're only here for the kid.
My vision blurred. Every instinct in me screamed to fight, to run, to do something, but there was nowhere to go. Just thin metal, tile, and 2 men who had followed me off a highway in the middle of a storm, and I had no knowledge about it until now.
No! You're not getting near her!
The door slammed inward with a violent bang. The metal bowed under the impact. My daughter whimpered, and I tightened my grip on her, bracing myself. They were kicking the door again. Then a face appeared down the gap between the door and the floor. A creepy-looking guy stared in. Rainwater was still dripping from his hair. He smiled at me.
Just give us the girl.
Honestly, I wanted to cry, and even thought of begging them. But then it hit me. Evil people don't really have emotions. So I paused for a few seconds, and then kicked him in the face. My boot poked hard into his eye, and probably left him with a big enough scar above his eyebrow. He backed out, screaming loudly. Chaos exploded. They began swearing and cursing at me, saying all kinds of vile things that they would do to me and my daughter. I slid down from the toilet, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone as I dialed 911. I screamed into it, our location, what was happening, that men were trying to take my child. I yelled that the police were already on their way, over and over again. They cussed me out for a few more minutes, and then bolted out. They slammed the restroom door on the way out so hard that the stalls trembled with the impact. I didn't move. I stayed curled on the floor holding my daughter until red and blue lights finally flashed through the cracks in the wall. When the officers arrived, they escorted us out. Later at the station, one of them showed me footage from a highway camera where two men were following me in a black SUV for miles. I did file a report, but they haven't been caught yet. I don't pull over at isolated restrooms anymore. I'm just thankful that I and my daughter made it alive. I was 18, working part-time at Target in West Palm Beach, and barely making rent on the apartment I shared with two other girls. One of them was Stacy. We weren't exactly close, but she seemed to have money when the rest of us were struggling. When I asked about it, she giggled and said,
Oh, I'm just the fortunate one to land some easy work.
2 weeks before it happened, she cornered me in the kitchen and said,
Daisy, I see how you struggle for even the basics. I work for this super rich guy. He's generous and employs girls like us for odd chores. When I told him about you, he agreed to help. Odd chores? Petty stuff like serving drinks. Nothing you can't manage.
She showed me her Venmo with $500 from 3 nights ago.
It's like 5 hours of work, Daisy.
I should have asked more questions, but it was $500 and I badly needed the money.
Is it safe? Completely. There's security everywhere. There would be other girls too. It's basically just a weird rich guy with too much money to care.
She grabbed my hand.
Come with me on Friday. If you hate it, you never go back.
That Friday, Stacy picked me up at 12:45 a.m. It was late, but she said that's when he preferred having people over.
He's a night owl. Sleeps during the day.
We pulled up to the gates that looked expensive. She buzzed the intercom and the gates opened. The driveway stretched forever, lined with palm trees. At the end sat this massive mansion glowing with lights. 2 men in suits stood at the entrance. They looked at me, but didn't ask for ID or my name. They simply opened the door, and we stepped in. Inside felt like a museum with marble floors and crystal chandeliers.
Wait here.
Stacy said, pointing to a sofa.
I need to check in first.
She disappeared down a corridor. I sat and pulled out my phone. It was 1:03 a.m. and I had no cellular service. I tried connecting to the Wi-Fi, but everything was password protected. 5 minutes passed, but there was no sign of Stacy. I decided to wait a bit longer. Throughout, I tried getting even a single bar of signal back, but couldn't. After about 20 minutes of waiting, I stood up and walked to where she'd disappeared.
Stacy?
I called over, but no one answered. I kept walking inside, when suddenly I heard muffled grunts and squeals coming from somewhere deeper in the house. Every instinct told me to leave, but I needed that money, and Stacy was still in there. I followed the sounds down the corridor, past closed doors. The noises got louder, coming from a door at the end that was slightly open, with warm light spilling through. I leaned closer and heard breathing, movement, and that weird squealing.
Hello?
I pushed the door. It swung open fast, and I stumbled into the room, and my brain exploded. There was a massage table in the center, with a man on it, wrapped in a white towel, but his face was covered by a cat mask. He was oversized, cartoonish, with huge plastic eyes and whiskers. Beside him stood a girl, maybe 20, wearing a bikini and a pink mouse mask with round ears. They both turned toward me, looking totally unbothered by my intervention. The man sat up slowly. Even with the mask, I could tell he was older, 50 or 60 maybe.
Come in,
He said, wiggling his index finger.
close the door.
I couldn't move. The girl in the mouse mask tilted her head, studying me. She didn't say anything, just stood there.
There's another mask for you,
The man said, pointing to a table near the wall. I looked. A hamster mask was sitting next to oils and towels, brown and white, with big front teeth.
We thought you might like that one.
My throat closed up.
Where's Stacy?
She's here, upstairs with the other girls.
He swung his legs off the table.
Don't be nervous. I promise it'll be fun.
The mouse-masked girl walked toward me and reached for my hand. Her skin was cold.
No!
I jerked back.
I need to find Stacy. I need to leave.
But you just got here.
He chuckled, as if he was enjoying my nervousness.
Stacy said you needed money. I'm loaded. If you make me happy.
I don't want.
My voice cracked.
I want to leave.
He stood up fully now. The cat mask started coming closer. Without thinking, I bolted back through the door, down the corridor. I expected someone to stop me, but no one came. The mansion felt empty. I burst through the front entrance. The security guards were gone, and the gates stood wide open. I didn't have my phone. I dropped it somewhere while running, but I didn't care. I ran, sprinted down the driveway in the dark. I made it to the main road and didn't stop until I found a gas station 2 miles away. I used their phone to call an Uber. When I got home, Stacy wasn't there and didn't come back for 3 days. When she finally showed up, she acted like nothing had happened.
Where did you go? I came back and you were gone.
You left me there for half an hour.
It was like 10 minutes. Jeez, you're so dramatic.
She rolled her eyes.
You missed out on easy money because you were scared of some masks?
I moved out 2 weeks later, blocked her number, and tried to forget. In 2019, I saw the news of Jeffrey Epstein's arrest. The mention of his Palm Beach mansion blared alarms. I called the FBI tip line and told them everything. They took my statement and said they'd follow up, but nobody ever called back. Epstein died in jail. Stacy disappeared, deleted social media, and moved away. And I'm left knowing exactly what that room was, what those masks meant, and what I was supposed to become. I think about the girl in the mouse mask all the time, though. How still she stood, how cold her hand felt, whether she got out or if she's still in some mansion somewhere, wearing a different mask.